Silicon Valley, technology, art, green, and sustainability. Welcome to another episode of Silicon Valley Tech, Art, Green, and Sustainability. Today I am very honored to have a guest with me that I've known for quite a while, David Gottfried, founder of the World Green Building Council, US Green Building Council, and the list goes on and on of the things that you've done and founded. But before we go there, I just got done reading, actually I read half of it on a vacation and then another half on another vacation my sister just took me on, and it was Green to Green. And on the days we were at sea, I couldn't put it down. I just kept reading it. It was just a wonderful history about how you started the USGBC, your path in your career, Stanford, all that. And you're going to talk about that in a minute. And you have two other books. So welcome, and tell us a little bit about your history. I just read the book, so I know a lot about your history, but tell us about you.
Sure, it's great to be here. And Green to Green was my first book. That was about 11 years ago. And it told the 10-year story of the founding of the US Green Building Council and the World GBC, and then later wrote Greening My Life, which was my second epiphany, thinking about what is a green life, and then most recently Explosion Green, which is our 20-year memoir of the US Green Building Council, the World GBC.
Well, here, let's see, this is the one we were just talking about. So this is
the one you read on vacation.
Yeah, so this was your first one.
Right.
And I thought this was your second one.
No, that was the first book.
So this is the first, and then this was the second that you just mentioned.
Called Greening My Life.
Okay.
And I invented a green life rating system, and so it takes the reader through that.
And then we'll get a close-up of the next one, which we'll talk about in a minute. Let me put these back down here. And this is the third one.
Right, and this just came out in June.
Oh, my fingers are in the way. Here we go. You get a close-up of that. Yeah, so this is wonderful. You're quite the accomplished author now, and then you've got all these businesses that you've helped and started, and you're on all these boards. Just wonderful, wonderful. And of course, I know you from the US Green Building Council. Back in 2007, I kind of stupidly raised my hand and said, why isn't there a South Bay branch? And Dan Geiger said, well, Heather, you've been on a couple boards. Why don't you help with that? It's like, oh, no, why did I raise my hand, right? And then the rest is just kind of history. We founded it with a group of 20, one of the fastest ones to be founded. In our audience, we actually have someone that was on that founding team of 20.
Sure.
And, it's just amazing. And the numbers since then of the people that have been doing LEED AP and around the world is just, and I guess they don't call it LEED AP other places. So tell us about the USGBC and then the World Green Building Council. And of course, I know a lot more than most people, but tell us about it and what it is.
Well, the reason I wrote the book is the story went global. And even Bill Clinton gave me the testimonial for the cover. So we touched him and his work with the foundation. But the US Green Building Council was a vision a little more over 20 years ago to green the US building industry and pull together a coalition of the building industry with everyone at the table, whether you're an architect, manufacturer, utility, cleaning company, even a tenant. Pull them together to define green building. And that became LEED, the LEED Green Building Rating System.
Which is Leadership in Energy Environmental Design.
Correct. And LEED became the largest green building rating system in the world. And you can download it for free at usgbc.org. But little did we know, and it's part of the reason for the book, is LEED not only went global, it's being used in 150 countries. We have over 200,000 LEED accredited professionals, and we created a whole movement. And the green building formula that I invented with the USGBC more than 20 years ago became part of the World Green Building Council, which I founded and funded personally. We now have 100 countries with green building councils.
I remember reading in the book, too. Let's pull up the first slide about was it the Italian
Spain was in the book,
Spain.
And Japan.
There was 3 companies that wanted to help found it. And anyway, here is locally, and then in New York, we have here on the slide, this is Adobe, which were the first triple platinum 3 buildings in the world here locally, and then in Silicon Valley, and then also the Empire State Building. Let's pull that down. So, spanning the whole US, there's been, I don't even know how many square feet of buildings. You probably
Well,
do.
globally, we have 11 billion square feet, 300,000 buildings.
Wow.
If you added it up at $300 a square foot, it's huge.
And let's pull up the next slide because we're talking about the global. And I went on the site last night or 2 nights ago, and here are there's 5 regions right now in the world that you guys are in, and these are kind of marked down on the map of the World Green Building Council. We can pull that down. So it's just amazing. And your road there, again, tell us a little bit about your history. You're a Stanford graduate, and your major there was what?
I studied engineering and business. Engineering resource management was my degree, so it turned out to be perfect.
And did I read that you kind of made your own degree there?
I did through general engineering, but I studied a lot of solar, and Gil Masters is an emeritus professor at Stanford who taught me and thousands of others. And for our solar class, we had to design a net zero home. And I don't want to tell you how many decades ago it was, but it was pretty leading edge at that time.
So that was before the whole, I forget the name of it right now, but Santa Clara University, the universities do the solar challenge, I guess, with building a home in DC. And I guess they did it this last year, either here or somewhere on the West Coast, or they're going to do it on the West Coast.
There's a competition. I think they put it on the Smithsonian.
Yeah.
And then they judge them. And Stanford had a great team this year.
So again, tell us about founding it. Again, I read the book, but tell us a little bit about that. And you didn't start off to found the USGBC or World, right? You were a developer.
Yeah, I was a real estate developer for 10 years in the go-go 80s of DC. That was an interesting period because it's when local developers could dominate the scene. And I worked with some cousins who had a construction firm, a property management firm, and a development company. And I came as a fresh kid out of Stanford, 22, and within 1 year they were letting me run projects. And so I was very lucky. I was running 100-unit condominium projects and rezoning agricultural land and splitting it into lots and selling it off. We were doing syndications, and I got my broker-dealer license. We did historic renovation, brand new office buildings. It's an incredible growth opportunity for a young kid.
And then you started your own thing and then went back to your family business, and you got recruited in between there by another company, which people need to read the book because it's such an interesting history. And then you moved back to San Francisco. And it's so different, West Coast, East Coast. I remember you talking in the book about you came in this new suit and your cousin was like, oh no, we're going shopping in New York. It's so different, the East Coast, West Coast. We go to Beverly Hills and shop here, but it's nothing like New York. And,
Well, in the book I wrote, when I went to DC, cool was an all-nighter working and wearing your suit or your black tie and your Ferragamos and an all-nighter. When I moved back to San Francisco, cool was a triathlon, and so I gave up my suits and ties and black tux for a new mountain bike that had a granny gear that could do a triathlon.
How long, so it was like 94, 93, how long did it actually take you to found the USGBC and the World Green Building Council?
So the story starts in 92.
92.
And it's still ongoing. USGBC has over 250 employees today. The founding part took about 6 to 8 months to raise the capital and launch it. It was a tough period because I was funding this thing out of my personal pocket. And then LEED came out a number of years later. We started officially April of 93 at the American Institute of Architects headquarters. And then LEED came out around 98. And all of a sudden our growth went from kind of slow towards the galaxies. And that hockey stick is a similar growth chart for a lot of Silicon Valley growth companies.
So let's pull up the next slide. So when so here it talks about, I think you said it was 200,000 folks now that are LEED
accredited professionals.
And looking at the ripple effect, and then looking at the landscape too. Here, we have droughts and we have floods, right? So the water efficiency, the energy efficiency, the conservation of materials, we can pull that down, is so important. And LEED was really the first thing to start pushing that for us. And it's we can pull that slide down. I think when I stopped volunteering on the board of the chair of the programs for the USGBC in 2010, 2011, there was like maybe 100 and something, and they just had changed the testing So there was just 100 at that time. So just in a few years, it's gone up to
100,000?
Yeah, yeah.
Right.
So now it's over
We've
200.
tipped 200,000.
Which is just insane.
All over the world. So people in China are taking our test for a LEED accredited professional. And overseas now, LEED is almost equal in square footage to the US. So I was in India checking